First, let me just say it's wonderful to be here in Israel. We have a big team here in Tel Aviv and in Haifa, and we've watched from a distance the difficulties and challenges of the last couple of years, and to be here is a real honor, and to be with the team. So thank you to all of you who've lived through this. I'm going to talk about the complexity of AI agents specifically, although it could probably apply to the general topic of AI. I've been reading more books to think about this, about biology now than engineering, because I think we need to start thinking more of complex autonomous systems that you can't always be deterministic about. And so whether it's the body or ecosystems, I think there's a lot to learn from the biological sciences or the ecosystem sciences. So as we think about that, I think there's a real opportunity in the cybersecurity space to take lessons from other fields. Just to make us feel a little better, my wife studied political theory actually at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and she always reminds me, you don't need to read all of this, that Plato with Socrates back in 370 was really anxious about writing and the alphabet. So our anxieties about AI and agents are not really new in that sense. We've always found ways to use new technology to help us as we move forward. Another example of that is, let's see, I think of cars, actually. I know we take these for granted, but in many ways, a car is an autonomous agent. You don't know what every driver's going to do, but we have ways of building guardrails and systems that contain the risks, and we manage as a society to figure out how to live with that and get the benefits of the cars while still minimizing the downsides. And I think the thing is that all of you and all of us work on this. The risks will be different in each industry. So whether it's transportation, whether it's health, the issues are not just about the agent or the technology, it's about the vertical you're working in, and the guardrails that get put in place need to be much deeper in the sector. So for all of us who are used to working in cybersecurity and working as a horizontal, the depth of our relationships with the businesses and the sectors we work in are going to be critical as we deploy agents into those environments. Just taking a quick step back, I studied computer science in the 90s with a guy named David Gelertner, and we did a very baby AI version, sort of multi-dimensional cluster analysis, but it was sort of really early days. And if you think about where we've come and the opportunities that sit in front of us from where we were just a few decades ago, it's really incredible. And so before I dive into the risks and how we want to manage those, I just wanted to remind us why we're doing this. This is a picture of my son, who 5 years ago got COVID and still remains with long COVID. He only gets up each day to go to the bathroom. Otherwise, he's lying down in a dark room. And on the other hand, I look at the innovations that you see based on using AI and agents. Think of this as the AlphaFold project, taking the base pairs of the DNA into amino acids into proteins, and just the complexity of the problems that have been able to solve using this technology. This, won the Nobel Prize last year from chemistry. And again, it's important that we're not just thinking about the downsides of these technologies, but it's through the usage of AI and other capabilities that we're going to be able to help people, whether it's in health, transportation, energy, poverty alleviation. Same is true for a product called AI Co-Scientist, which is starting to be a workbench which we have given to literally hundreds and thousands of scientists, and they use it to hypothesize or look at objectives for their science, and this works day and night to generate additional hypotheses and additional opportunities, and then they compete like a chess game, and you get an ELO score each morning as you watch new hypotheses come. So just as we think about the risks, let's also think about the upsides and figure out how to balance those things well. So I don't want to minimize the fact that there are risks. Here you see, whether it's the adoption outpacing our ability to control it, access control and privilege management, configuration management, a lot of the same issues that we've dealt with in IT or in technology for many years, those exist in this new environment. So to help manage that, we have published and are working as an industry on 3 principles to help us manage the agentic era. First, human oversight. Now, that doesn't always mean everybody has to click everything or see everything. Oversight can mean different things in different instances. Second, innovation with control. I think of these as the guardrails. And third, transparency. When something does go wrong, how do we have the logs and the forensics to be able to figure out what happened and how to resolve the issue? I won't, make you watch all of these videos, but here's a few examples of here you got Gemini with human oversight, asking whether you want to delete something. So a good example of when do you put the human in the loop? Or when do you put a threshold on what the agent's done when a human needs to get involved? So there are a lot of interesting engineering problems that we can solve to make it easy for a human to have oversight of these agents. The second example is innovation with control. And I really think this idea of guardrails, and the reason I put up the cars is because road signs, traffic lights, highways, speed limits, etc., radar controls, we need to be thinking in terms of blast radiuses, because these are non-deterministic by definition, and they're going to be dynamic. Think back to that biological example. So figuring out how to build guardrails for the specific industry will be critical, because we're not going to be able to foresee in advance everything that these agents will do, but we can contain the blast radiuses. And then third, transparency. At a simple level, this is the logging. Here you see in the Google SOC technology, sort of how you would log that an agent had taken action versus a human, and how you would tie that to the human. So these 3 principles are part of our larger secure AI framework called SAFE. There's a paper now on our approach to secure AI agents with a subset of those 3 principles we just talked about. And we're working across industry to now build an open source technology which will implement those principles that I just took you through. The last part of this, I want to remind us that we are not going to be able to do this with yesterday's technology. I always think about this in terms of I think it's a German proverb, but let's not be the cobbler's children. So we build, we're busy securing or building everybody else's shoes, but let's put shoes on ourselves. Like we as a cybersecurity industry need to use AI to implement the controls I'm just talking about. At Google, we've been doing this for many years, whether it's in the Play Store, in Gmail, in Chrome. We have not solved those problems of hundreds of millions of spam messages or malicious apps in the Play Store without using AI. So use AI, learn to use AI in the service of those controls and principles I just talked about. We will not solve these problems with yesterday's technology. Just a couple of examples of that. People may have heard of our Big Sleep project. So Project Zero is a team at Google which goes out and finds 0 days and burns them before the bad guys can use them. We combined that team with a group at DeepMind and said, can you do more interesting versions of what you've done for many years using Gemini, using the new technology? And last year we found the first 0 day in an open source project. This year we found dozens more, and I think you will continue to see that trend, not just from Google, but from many others, finding vulnerabilities faster. Paired with this is a project called Mender, which is the automated writing of a patch to fix that vulnerability. And I don't think we're far off from living in a world where self-defending applications find, write, and deploy solutions to vulnerabilities. At the same time, I talked about industry-specific work, and I think this is really important. When you look at the model context protocol or agent-to-agent protocol, those are sort of wide open and hierarchically abstract. The first example is of a sector taking that high-level protocol and making it their own in the shopping and commerce space. So this is the Google example. But you may have seen this agent-to-payment protocol, which is just a hierarchical inheritance of the A-to-A protocol made useful in the context of payments. And so you have an ecosystem there where merchants have a role to play, and they have certain fields in the protocol that they publish, you have the payments ecosystem, the agent in the middle. There are certain fields that will allow us to do fraud detection, dispute resolution, anything we've done historically, but now in the context of agents. But we need each sector to help refine the protocol for health, for transportation, for energy. So there's work to be done on all those fronts. And I think instead of thinking of something like this, which is the query or the prompt you would get into Gemini to do some shopping for you, think of each of those as a control, in that you have a maximum of $85. That's a control that someone can rely on for a blast radius. There's going to be versions of that, again, for each sector. What are the thresholds above which we want to tolerate, we don't want to tolerate certain risk? So going forward, there's lots of opportunity for all of you, all of us to participate, whether it's the Frontier Model Forum, ML Commons. We have spent a lot of time in what's called COSI, the Coalition for Secure AI. If people are interested in being involved in these things, it's an open project. The OASIS project deals with all the legal and other issues with how we collaborate, but that's where we're working out some of the details that go with the projects I just described. And then, because I'm coming from the US and we had Thanksgiving, I took and played with a picture that had my Peking duck and said, you know, show me eating this. But I show it back to that cobbler's children example because we need to play with this technology. It's a very democratic technology. No one's going to put it on your desk and make it easy for you. You're going to have to learn how to use it and then apply it to your own job. So play with it. It can be fun. It can be part of your life. And I hope I answered the last word I would leave with you is play with this and be a part of that story going forward. Thank you for your time.